been a carrier pigeon.
We are.
It's the city manager chair.
Yeah, city. All right, are live. It is now 7:03. I'll call to order a regular meeting of the City Helotes Economic Development Corporation. Is Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. Since we are missing a couple of directors, I'll go ahead and do a verbal roll call so that everybody knows we have quorum. Sorry. Director Helotes.
Present.
Director Benavides.
Present.
Director Lutz.
Present.
Director Lane.
Present.
Okay, and for the record, Director Hayden and Director Kodowski are not here. Kodowski will not be here and Mr. Hayden is on his way, but we do have quorum, so we're going to go ahead and proceed with the meeting in interest of everybody's time. All right, so first we're going to have, our agenda says a public hearing, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be public hearing.
Yes, sir.
I don't think we need to have a public hearing right now. So we're going to have a public hearing.
It is the hottest day of the year.
It is. It is. It was 107 degrees today. Yeah. So we're going to have a public hearing on proposed maintenance and operating interest in sinking and capital budgets for fiscal year ending 2025. The proposed EDC budgets include economic development projects as defined by local government code chapter 505 type B corporations. EDC fiscal year ending 2025 projects include the following: reimbursement to City of Helotes for 2015 certificate obligation debt, personnel and benefits, office rental memberships, audit fees, conferences, workshop seminars, legal and financial fees, conceptual design, land use planning, marketing, special event marketing, website development, maintenance, managed services agreement with City Old Town, Helotes parking lot lease agreement, visitor and business center, land acquisition, chapter 380 economic development agreement, reimbursements, Google 360 tours, e-commerce, accelerator grant, business improvement grant, retailer and tenant improvement grant, target new business development incentive, entertainment and distillery incentive program, and community arts grant program, and park and playground equipment. Okay, so I probably didn't need to read that all out, but I was into it already, and it's good for everybody that doesn't have the agenda in front of them. So on the public hearing, it's now open. So I think on the public hearing part, Glenda, I know we only do this once a year, so really, are we just opening it for anybody's commentary right now?
Yes.
Okay.
You can say the time that you open it and then the time when we close it.
Okay, so it is open at 7:06. Do we have any public comment? Okay, without hearing any public comment, I will now close it at, we'll call it 7:07, just so it's not the exact same time. And we'll move on to our open session. So open session, we will hear any citizens to be heard. Mr. Executive Director, do we have any citizens to be heard?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, without any citizens to be heard, I will close the open session and we'll move on to our consent agenda. So all consent agenda items listed below are considered routine by EDC staff and are intended to be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a director requests it, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. So do I have any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda?
Yes,
Okay, what item would you like?
I would like to remove the financial portion.
Okay, so we will be removing number 5, approval of the HEDC fiscal year ending 2024 revenue and expense report dated August 15th, 2024. We'll move that down into the items for individual consideration, and we will now entertain a motion for approval of consent agenda item number 4.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Helotes and Benavides. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Motion passes. All right, so we'll now move on to our committee reports. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, still 5 standing committees that we individually all are involved in. So the executive committee is myself, Secretary Lutz, and right now Vice President Kodowski. I don't believe we've had just a regular meeting of the executive committee on that. Director Lutz?
No, not a formal meeting.
Not a formal meeting, or just kind of typical discussions about everyday business and items that we've had come in and out. So I wouldn't say we have anything to report on the executive committee side. Finance committee. Anybody want to report on finance?
We reviewed and approved the expenditures from
the previous month, we did question the multiple payments to our website hosting and development provider, and it seems like they don't bill us for a few months and then all of a sudden bill us on a catch-up basis. So I think the request was made to move to quarterly or semi-annual payments on that to
Yes.
keep that from happening, because it just looks funky
It does.
on the report. As far as that goes, everything else was the same as it normally is as far as our other obligations that we have, except for the payment for the work that we're doing on the business and
Okay.
visitor center.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I know from a small business standpoint that sometimes you get still working in the business that you forget to bill. So it's probably be easier for them on a quarterly basis since it's pretty much under a contract situation anyways. Governance committee. Any reports, governance?
Y'all met and there's an agenda item tonight with the contract. They
Yes.
met to review outstanding contracts that were set to
Renew?
auto-renew.
Okay, well, very good. I guess we'll get to those in our individual items. Any other items from the governance side? No. Okay.
That was
Building Evaluation Committee. This is speaking specifically with pretty much our visitors and business center.
So we've had some emails that have gone back and forth just with updates as far as progress, and then a few changes in just some of the things that some of the contractors, we've been able to find some better bids. So just discussion on those items.
Hello.
And we'll get an update.
No problem.
Get an update from Glenn here at the end as far as timeline goes and progress on
Okay,
that project.
good. And for the record, Director Hayden has now joined us. Very good. So all you've missed so far, Greg, is we had the open session or the public hearing open and close for the budget. And then we did not have any citizens to be heard. We had approval of our minutes, and then we did have the expense report, revenue or expense report pulled from consent. And we're now going through the committees. Last one is a community enhancement committee. I think probably I have the most update on that. So good news is we did get our professional services agreement with Burdett approved by City Council. So thank you very much for that. And we are moving forward. Me and Glenn have had contact with Burdett. They're eager to get started. And I've actually already reached out with some first dates for kickoff meetings. They put together some framework for the online surveys. And then there's some dates that will be floating out to the rest of the Community Enhancement Committee, including the council members, for dates that they've thrown out as their first initial, I'll call them stakeholder meetings, which are kind of their stakeholder. What's really interesting with them is they really want to get as much feedback, especially from council, because they know y'all are in tune with the citizens, because we're going to only get so much feedback on the online survey that they really want to talk to. If they have their choice, they talk to each and every one of y'all without getting quorum. So that's going to be the fun part of trying to figure out, how we juggle that within the time frame that we have. So yeah, so some dates, and they are open to that as well. They are open to phone calls and any feedback that they can get. They're excited to hear. So those dates are going to be coming up quick. Me and Glenn have kind of put to them that we want to get motion going as soon as possible on that project, just so we don't have any lag. And hopefully with the Solace construction, that gives time for all of that to go away by the time that we're actually looking at doing any other type of improvements out there. So good things on that. And then, the Community Enhancement Committee, my thoughts is it will continue to be there even beyond the initial park improvements, because I think there's going to be other opportunities that we have, obviously, for community enhancement around the state. One of the pet projects I know we've talked about a lot in the past, but one I want to kind of bring up, and of course I want to get all y'all's thoughts on, is if y'all remember, right, we had thoughts of having some nice signage as you come into the city of Helotes. And then of course TxDOT kind of wrecked all the ideas of what we were going to do there because of the improvements that they've done. Now that they're looking hopefully complete sometime here in the near future, I think it's a revisit on that of maybe looking at some signage as you're coming into the city that will fit within the framework of what they now built, because we've got a mountain or a ocean, I should say, of concrete as you come into the city, and it's not the prettiest look, I think, for our front door. So that will probably be one of the new ones that come up here pretty soon, just as we can start switching focus. All right, so with that, with all the committee reports, we'll now move into our items for individual consideration. So we'll, number 4, do I need to put, should I put, number 5, I'm sorry. Should I put that before number 7 now?
Yep. Just
so we can have that discussion. Okay, so before we get to item number 7, we're going to pull down item number 5 on the revenue and expense report dated August 15th, 2024. I will now have a motion for discussion and action on item number 5.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so motion and second. So, all right. Director Helotes, since you made the motion, please tell us your thoughts.
Glenn, what has now that we have a new person over at City Hall that's interim position,
Correct.
have they given you an update on when they can expect the stuff to be taken care of?
And I will say he's been on the job for a week and a half. So trying to definitely play catch up. I informed him last week of kind of where we were on the interdepartmental transfers or the transfers even for debt service. He's been working with a finance director to research, to verify what has been paid and just what may not have been recorded, or if transactions actually haven't happened. So they're having to pull all the bank statements, all that kind of stuff to verify, which I've gone through and at least calculated on the revenue side, what we're missing in sales tax, transfer from city to EDC and mixed beverage. So we're about 630,000 in sales tax. It's only a few thousand on mixed beverage. There's 175,000 approximately in interest earned that isn't showing on our reports. And then we have about 735,000 in outstanding expenses, either related to contracts with the city or debt payments. So, I mean, it's almost good a balance in the end, but our records are not up to date. So he's hoping to have affirmative answers by Friday of this week, and then take whatever corrective action that needs to be taken next week. So we should have updated financial records for our September meeting.
Okay. And I think this is very, very, and thank you, Jeff, for bringing us out every time, because, you know, as it was 1 month, we kind of could understand in our head, and became 2 months, you know, became a little bit more, and now we're sitting probably about 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And so it's becoming really hard to understand these reports because you got so much that's missing in it. It's hard to tell whether we're on track or not on track, you know, where we are within our expenditure and revenue budgets. And of course, as we're going into the renewal of our new budget coming up for 2025, knowing those numbers is so important. So please do everything you can on your end to make sure you're working with them with what you know, so we can get this updated. But yes, I agree with you. What did you say the current expenses you think were out of what we owe to the city?
735,000. Okay.
You know, I just did quick math, you know, on the revenue side with the interest in the sales tax, it's about 805,000. Right. And so with 735,000, there's a positive in there for us somewhere. And I'm just interested to see where it all comes out in the numbers. And also, you know, for you to understand, Glenn, as you're making your budget for next year, to understand really what is a good budget number for the revenue side of sales tax, you know. And I know you're going to have later on your budget with some cool graphs and everything. You probably had to assume some things in there just because, you know, these numbers are just not the correct numbers right now.
How do you, if you don't mind, how do you figure, so when you do like the debt relief payment we do, is that done on is that contractual based on a day of the year? So it's the same day every year, so you can figure the interest up to that point?
Yeah, so the actual debt payment varies every year, depending on the amortization schedule and all that fun stuff. But yeah, there's a 15-year payoff record.
Okay.
It tells me exactly what goes to principal and then what goes to interest.
Yeah, as long as it's day, because I could just see like, I mean, you're talking about
Mhm.
5% on millions,
Yeah,
a couple $100,000, like 5 days makes, it's noticeable. So, okay.
Good point. Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Just looking for the update. Thank you.
Okay.
yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, so with that discussion, we have a motion for action on, I asked Director Felty, is that action for approval?
Yes.
So we have a motion and your second is for approval, Director Hayden. Okay, so we have a motion and second for approval of the expense and revenue and expense report for August 15th, 2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. So the motion passes and it is approved. All right. Now we'll move on to number 7. This is going to be a long item. So this is a presentation of and discussion on the proposed fiscal year ending 2024-2025 Helotes Economic Development Corporation operating budget. We don't have an action on this.
No.
Do we just need to open it for discussion?
Yes.
Okay. So can I have a motion for opening up item number 7 for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Lynn, the floor is yours in the screen.
Yes, sir. All right. I know we kind of ran through the budget last time in our spreadsheet, and I'll have that at the tail end of this presentation. Really wanted to go through and just highlight a couple of things. Today is our first and only public hearing for the budget. And then tomorrow we'll be doing a presentation to City Council. Their public hearing for our budget is not till September 12th. And then this will be, the budget will be brought back in September to this board for actual approval and action. And then it'll go then to City Council following that as well. And I think that's the 26th or
September 26th.
I think that's right. So we have a little bit of time still to make some edits and to update the figures as we get those coming in over the next couple of weeks. So again, we go through the budget. We've made some amendments to our strategic work plan, and we've tried to tie that into our budget and identifying our priorities and allocating additional resources to achieve some of our goals. On the sales tax side, anybody that doesn't know, we receive a 1/2 cent sales tax. We are a type B EDC corporation. So for 2025, we're anticipating about 2.5 million from sales tax. This year, we were projecting 3.2 million. It looks like we're going to be a lot closer to 2.45 million at the end of the year. A majority of that, I'd say close to 80% of that difference is really from the one business here in Helotes that we have the 380 agreement with. So throughout some of these slides, when we're talking about revenue, I will also be highlighting how much we pay out in 380 agreements. So we're projecting this year and next year to be paying out $1 million. And then additional revenues from mixed beverage, rent from the co-working, and then interest earned. We're estimating somewhere around 205,000. I do think that could potentially get amended as we see some of the interest earned come in this year. So on this one, we've never actually presented the sales tax revenues like this before. We always look at our gross revenue. Now, I wanted to break it down to what our net sales tax is that we keep, and then what we reimburse out as part of our 380 agreement. As you can see, as our sales tax has grown, so has the reimbursement. And it pretty much, it's close to half of our revenue. I think this year it's 36% of our revenue we give back as a reimbursement.
Interesting graph.
So we do have all of the numbers, kind of see the steady increase. I would note kind of the drop that we're seeing over the last couple of years in sales tax. It really correlates a lot with interest rates. And I know with our largest sales tax producer, consumer interest rates and commercial interest rates, right? They affect the amount of business that comes through the door, whether it's new home builds, it's renovations, commercial projects when they're not pulling the trigger because interest rates. I was actually pulling some of those numbers, SBA loans, which, you know, there's definitely quite a few of those around. They're currently at 11.5 to 16.5% interest
Wow.
for an SBA loan. So current commercial rates, most of them are going to be prime plus. So we're seeing anything from 8.5 to 11% on the commercial banks. So I know mortgage rates are a little bit under that, but still it affects what people can borrow. I was really shocked on the SBA loans going up to 16.5%.
Yeah, it makes them unattainable or just don't make financial sense to go get one.
We haven't seen that since the 80s.
Yeah.
So people have been spoiled for quite a number of years. So again, this is going back and looking just at our the net sales tax in of itself. So this year we'll be at net sales tax 1.45 million, next year 1.5. So we're seeing a small uptick, but we kind of see a little bit more steady growth. So as a breakdown revenue percentage, I kind of mentioned it earlier, you know, this year we're projected for 2025, 56% of our revenue is our net sales tax, 37% of the revenue is rebated. We anticipate having about 2% in the sublease co-working center. About 5% of our revenue comes from interest earned. So this one will break down our expenditures. Now, it looks like a big difference between 24 and 25, but what I'll keep in mind is we always project spending more than we typically do because we do have our incentive programs that we will capitalize, but we may not necessarily use all those funds. So that's why you're going to see a larger jump than.
Yeah, and as I was going through this, Glenn, I saw that and I was like, oh my God, it's going to freak people out. But I think it's very important that, and I know you're going to get to that part in here, but I think it's important when you're presenting this, especially to council, just letting them know that there's a big jump in there that you'll explain where that jump is coming from later on in the presentation.
Yes, sir. And
that's open eyes.
Yeah. And then this one is our debt service payments. And so we have our own debt obligation from, we did the revitalization in Old Town, we did the pedestrian bridge, and then we've taken on some extra debt relief for the city for the water sewer line that was built along Bandera Road. That took into effect 2023. So we're going to see that one moving forward.
And that's a set amount every year, correct?
For the city, it is a set amount. Obviously for ours, it fluctuates year to year. I don't have the schedule in front of me. There's one year coming up that there's not necessarily an appreciable difference, but it's a larger payment, like 380,000 or something instead of the 330. But
right. But for this, the debt relief for the city that's set at 325.
It is.
Okay.
That's a fixed rate. So looking at the actual 23 and then our projected 24 budgets, a lot of the expenditures are right there in line, very similar. This next year, again, you're going to see a little bit more projected. But you can see the difference, honestly, between the adopted FY24 and the projected year-end 24.
Yeah.
So total expenditures, we were planning to spend 3.6 million and we've only spent 2.6. So yeah, if we're looking at it as a percentage in 25 over 24, based on year-end estimates, actually, sorry, adopted FY24 and proposed 25 were 9% less. But if you look at what the year end is, we're 26% more on expenditures. So some of the big changes on expenditures, we're going to continue doing the tenant improvement grant. I think in the budget we have right now, 150,000 allocated for that. And then the breakdown, we anticipate having 20,000 carry over from a project that was already approved. And then we'll have 130,000 available for new projects. Marketing is definitely an increase from, I believe it was close to 65,000 to 84. There'll be a little more discussion tonight on that. We would like to take on some additional event marketing budget directly by the EDC. Visitor Center, that one's obviously a drop. We had 300,000 in there for this last year, and looking at it closer to 30,000 operating expenditure moving forward. That number potentially could go up if the center doesn't get, if we don't get all the payments out by the end of the year. But right now it looks like we are on track to finish that project out. So one of the new incentive, or I guess a component, the targeted business incentive we've done this year, we had allocated 300,000. This next year we bumped it to 750. So we want to incorporate a couple of new programs within that. And that will be to identify specific target, let's say industries, so whether we're going to do entertainment or casual dining or distillery type development. So those still need to be, the programs need to be created, brought to you guys for approval, but we've allocated funds in the budget for those programs. The 380 agreement, and this is really our best guess on what we've seen historically. And I think this year we're going to be right at $1 million, and I think that's going to continue. And then we've park and playground equipment. I don't know if that number needs to go up. We have a placeholder for 150,000. Some of that will be the master plan creation, and then trying to implement possibly a phase one, which I think really is going to be parking is phase one.
Could be. On that, Glenn, at 150,000, is there any carryover included that? I mean,
not currently. So I know we have 25,000 allocated for playground equipment here at City Hall. Public Works is trying to get that done before the end of the year so we can get that out of this fiscal year. If not, then that'll be added.
Okay.
So let's see. Total revenues projected at 305. Again, $1 million is coming out for the Chapter 380 agreement. Kind of already went through all those numbers.
Right. So this is when I went through this, Glenn, this was probably the slide that it confused me a little bit just to understand. So we say total revenue for 24-25 is projected to be 3.5 million, let's call it, representing a 32.83% increase. But really, it's not, it is revenue, but it's not revenue. It's not revenue like we're not getting that much more in sales tax. It's because we're taking money out of our reserves to put into that, the development incentive program.
Yeah, that's where that total number is coming from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for everyone to understand. It's like we're actually getting more money. We're not having more money come in from sales tax. It's not like we're actually getting revenue. It's actually coming out of our reserve fund that we're tapping into to put it into that targeted business. That's at 750,000. So kind of is going to go along with our strategic plan that Glenn will talk about later. About we're really going to focus on trying to figure out how to get some more business here, some good sales tax paying business, hopefully. So I think it's important that it's not really an increase. We're not really getting all that more money from a pure revenue standpoint. As far as sales tax go, we're almost going to be flat from this year to 25.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is looking at our fund balance, which would be our savings So we had 3.8 million at the beginning of this year. And then based on our projected surplus this year, we should add about 64,000 or so to it.
Does that include interest earned?
Yes. So here's the schedule, actually for our next couple of presentations. Tomorrow again is this first presentation to council, then the public hearing will be September 12th, comes to EDC on September 18th. And then, yeah, September 26th is the final approval by council. All that is, this is kind of the line item of every single revenue and expense account that we currently have. Most of these items are staying very similar to what they've historically been.
Yeah, so that use of fund balance, 406, 1035,
Yes.
that's what we're pulling out of reserves.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's representing a big increase in our revenue. Although it's kind of weird. We call it revenue, but I guess that's the way they have to book it. I mean, it's just weird to call it revenue whenever you're just taking it out of almost like out of your savings account. You know, it's not a financial guy.
No, are there any questions on either the presentation or the attached document?
One clarification on the presentation. In our thing, it's page 26. It's the table, fiscal year 23 to 24 budget. So it says it at the top there. Trying to figure out where you're getting this percentage decrease over adopted budget, the 9.55% at the bottom of that.
Yeah, so the difference between the 3.6 and 3.3. So the will
I
be,
see. Okay.
that's
Percentage decrease over adopted budget. Okay. So for adopted from 24 to proposed, potentially adopted of 25.
Our proposed budget is approximately 10% less than last year.
right.
I see it now.
And
Okay.
then if you're looking at estimated year end, it's a 26% increase.
Yeah, I can. see
I didn't know,
that.
it's like,
Yeah.
however you want to look at it.
I mean, it's not an increase. I like this number. The 9.55% decrease is more representative because it's comparing the two numbers at a similar time frame
Yes.
from last year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Not sure how much this ties in to what we're talking about directly, but with the appetite or the increased appetite for grant programs, I know there was discussion about getting more specific on the matrix or kind of how that works out. Is that happening in committee or do we wait for that budget to be full? No, I guess we still want to know because we have.
Yeah, you're talking about for actually coming up with a guideline.
Yeah, so it's
of how
not just like, oh,
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should be probably going to be handled at the committee level. And probably that would probably fall under our, which committee would that kind of go under, Glenn?
Either executive or finance
Right.
could handle it.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that part out, but it's kind of like how we did the tenant improvement. We kind of had no framework to work with and Lynn came up with a great scoring system that we all, once the committee made it, then it came to the board and we all approved it.
Yeah, just as a
Yeah.
new guy, I was curious how
Yeah.
that folded. Very excited about it though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially with this amount of money that's going to be in there, it's definitely got to have some, there's got to be a way that we're going to judge these things, you know, these projects and figuring out how to come up with the scoring. Scoring always works well, right? Because it's easy numbers that you can see where you fall and it could even be a sliding scale on how it relates to money.
I think there's good direction too from the strategic planning session too, that committee would be able to look at to see what we already kind of discussed there with that project or grant.
Okay. So I think individually, just any of us, this is going before city council tomorrow. So and I don't know how much in detail you've gone through, but this last sheet, you know, the one that kind of gives a breakdown of each one of the line items, that there's something in there that you as a person looked at it and said, wow, what's going on here? I definitely would let Glenn know before tomorrow. That way he can just be prepared, because probably whatever questions we were thinking, he's probably going to get asked. So
Sure.
just want to be prepared. This is the first time that we're actually, I'm going to say, presenting an unbalanced budget. We've been pretty good at balancing our budgets without having to pull out of reserve, which is why we have a large reserve fund. But this year we're making a purposeful intent of to follow along with our strategic plan to actually use this reserve funds to target business, and that's going to be a focus going into next year. So it's a balanced budget, but it's not really a balanced budget because we're actually dipping into savings, you know.
Right.
Which is good, because right now, if I looked at where we're at 3.8 million and our operating budget's about 1.5, so we've got like 24 months of reserve. So I think that's probably a little bit too much. If you want to put in months of reserve. Okay.
I think it's just important to note too, Blaine, that there's not a whole lot of discussion up here, but there has been a whole lot of discussion in individual meetings that we've had originally when we started looking at this budget and making those adjustments where we wanted to intentionally. The intention and purpose was there. It's just I feel that we don't have any discussion here that's not relatable
Yeah.
from the discussion here, but I know I've been in at least 2 of the meetings, maybe 3, where we've specifically talked about this budget here that we're presenting right now.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Joel, I think it's important everybody knows that there's been and it may be even beyond just individual or committee inputs. There's been individual items in there that have been spoken about. It says, all right, what's going on with this number here? So I was happy. I went through it in pretty good detail. You know, it's again, for the naked eye, it's hard for a lot of people to understand without knowing those discussions that go behind it. So just be prepared, Glenn, to be able to answer all those questions based on all the discussions that we've had in the past.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So really, we have no action on that item. Thank you for the presentation. I don't think there's really any changes that you need to have made for tomorrow other than just being prepared for questions. All right, so with that, we'll move on to item number 8. So this is discussion and action on adopting the fiscal year 2025 strategic work plan. Do I have a motion for discussion and action?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. So it is now open for discussion. So Glenn, why don't you give us the presentation there on the strategic work plan?
So this year, there are quite a few modifications to the strategic plan. There is a summary included on the agenda item request form, and then I've attached the document as well. So under goal 1, we wanted to change that more to a short-term and long-term goal, meaning some of these items we want to achieve take years to get, and some things are achievable in the near term. So this is kind of setting our horizon and our objectives moving forward. So on priority 1, I know we're going to develop some more public outreach efforts. We are developing online surveys. We plan to send those out in newsletters as well. Creating networking events with some of our stakeholders. I think we're in the plan I put in at least creating, to start off, let's get 1 off this next year, possibly 2, see how they go. So maybe doing those on a semi-annual basis.
And Glenn, whenever I first looked at this, whenever you sent out the agenda earlier this week, it's kind of like the first couple of sheets it's almost like it's your Microsoft Word document telling you what was been added and removed and changed, right? And then the after that is the actual what is the strategic work plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is just kind of a summary of everything that got added or removed from the original document.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So I know doing our quarterly outreach and including that in the reports to council, we've added in evaluation of possible industrial projects. We need to identify areas that those could be located, and then we have had projects in the past that would like to come to Helotes. A lot of times the industrial is on the acreage exceeds what we have available, or if we do have a property, it happens to be abutting a residential subdivision. So sometimes those are a little more sensitive, but I think we have potentially a couple of lots that either in the ETJ or what am I trying to think of, under a different owner right now that we might be able to pull out. One of those like CPS, property that they own, might be able to get them to sell the property. So that would be a potential great one for industrial. Priority 2, we discussed adding grocery store to the targeted industry list. We're removing, do you want me to go line by line, by the way?
No, I don't think it's necessary, Glenn. We'll be here for a long time. I think we've all looked at this. Was there anything specifically? And I would say 95% of this came of the meeting that we had with council, the open meeting that we had and with other citizens. 95% of these edits came from that, of everything that you see on that page, the front and back of those pages of what's been added. So I
hit a couple of key ones on here. I know there's been a lot of discussion around annexation and the possibilities of getting voluntary annexation. So that's something we can go back to our pre-annexation master plan that was developed a few years ago. I know it kind of identified the areas to target first, and we can start reaching out to see if there's any interest. That will likely entail some type of incentive back to the property owner to get them to want to pay higher taxes. But it could be absolutely a win-win. I know we're going to work on formalizing a better BRE, so business retention and expansion. So our outreach efforts to really formalize those visits and have something that we can go back and review. Visitor center, obviously that's staying in, just changing from a conceptual project to an actual fulfillment and marketing standpoint. So I think the goal is to be 70% occupied by the end of 2025. We've identified specific trade shows to attend, and at least trying to attend 1 or 2 of those a year, along with educational opportunities. I know we're going to make some edits to the website to include some board of director bios, and we'll have your contact information on there. We're going to do a lot more public outreach. So hopefully your phones can ring off the hook, not just city council.
Okay.
And there's going to be definitely a lot of priority given to marketing. That budget has increased this year, or the line item. And so plan on having 3 to 4 different marketing campaigns on different sectors, whether we're looking at marketing events and tourism, or marketing EDC programs, or marketing available properties and development opportunities. So that is definitely taking a priority. That's probably
The intention with that too, I assume, is to potentially get some outside help with that.
yes. Contracting through third-party vendors. Absolutely.
Okay. So, as I go through here, Glenn, one of the requests we had and just feedback was, adding some specific items that, I would say can be tangible as far as like, all right, we got this done and knocked it off our list. I mean, a lot of this is there's things in here that obviously, it's in our work plan for next year. Where the expectation is we're going to get these done. So I think we're all on board to help out as much as possible. Although there will be a lot of heavy lifting on your end, but I think, creating the business newsletter quarterly, creating a welcome letter for new business owners. I think these are all nice, tangible items that we can get complete this year. That will show just some ways that we're changing how we're doing business. Getting to that 70% occupancy level at the visitor center, I think that's going to be all heavy lifting for us, right? Just using our network to get as many people as we can to get the word around. Then of course for you to attend trade shows. So I think these are all good things. I think are going to be very noticeable, especially the marketing effort. I think seeing that I think we'll all feel that and visualize that as we're citizens ourselves kind of experiencing it. All right. So I don't think it's necessary. So that was kind of a summary of everything that's changed. And then we were all involved in the creation of the original. So now you know the original, what has changed. And so it's gotten a lot more detailed than probably any strategic plan, at least I've seen in the last 5 years. And I think we've really cleaned it up well and took out some things that no longer need to be there that we don't need to put focus on. Did anybody have any questions, any discussion?
Going along the lines of what you had mentioned more about having an actual tangible amount of whatever it is in this that we're doing, or whether it's the outreach, whether it's the newsletters, whatever it is, how important do y'all feel it is to maybe put some numbers to those, or is that going to pigeonhole us a little bit too much to some of these items that were
Like
the reach outs, the whatever, the visits, whatever it is, do we want to do? Is this the place where we would put that, or is that more in a sidebar note as far as what our expectations are with that?
yeah,
It's more of a question than
yeah.
change necessarily. Do you feel like there's any place in here that we could add more detail?
I mean, I would say you could. It's a balancing act, right? Trying to get all of these, trying to make achievements in each of these areas for one person.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to focus on a couple of areas, then another one, may get left behind for a quarter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But just being honest.
Right. Yeah, I think trying to prioritize them and having that checklist that we can kind of, look at all of them and see which things can get started now so that can continue on throughout the year and bounce back and forth between the need of them as they move along in their process, whatever that is. But yeah, I understand it. I'm happy to hear that the marketing can hopefully be done by, no offense, a professional in that realm, and hopefully that would relieve some of that burden that's on there from you if we can get that done at some point in time. I had spoken with a few other commercial realtors post this meeting that we had about this, because that was one of our priorities that we had on here. And I actually visited with Glenn about this, and we talked about the agenda today, just trying to get a little more granular with them and figuring out they have a kind of a negative connotation about trying to develop here a little bit, at least the ones I spoke to from Endura and otherwise. So want to try to dig into that a little bit more. And that's kind of where my detail was. I'm reading in here that we have quarterly outreach. So I guess that is specific. We're going to speak with some people here quarterly, but and include that in the quarterly report. But I hope that we can have a more formal report as part of that too, where we can kind of say, hey, what do we need to change here to incentivize or shine a better light?
Yeah.
Specifically the commercial people.
I think you brought out a good point there, Joel, as far as like on I'll call it the tracking, right, of how we're accomplishing our goals within the strategic plan. I think that the quarterly report that we're giving to council every quarter, I think is a great opportunity that we can almost use this as our guide, right, as far as like some of the items that we have in here and what we've done during that quarter to meet some of these goals.
Yeah, I'd love to see a checklist on there, or I mean, some form of a checklist, right, where we can show those things being completed, or this sounds cumbersome, but even a percentage complete. So say we think it's gonna take this amount of effort, whatever it is, that may be too, I don't know if that's possible, but you know what I mean? That could give some insight as to, it seems like these graphs have worked out well.
Mhm.
People can say, hey, this project, this project, this project, and here's the percentage that we feel we've accomplished towards that goal, maybe.
I like it. Everybody likes visuals.
I would just hop in. I think some of these are more, like, I think all these are multivariable equations. Like, there's just some things we control, some things we don't control. But I think some, like, as just a measure of good faith, like I think it would show the effort on the EDC side to show like we're following up on something like, for instance, annexation and 380 agreements. Like, I think there is a provable amount of businesses who potentially are on the ATJ that would qualify for these conversations. I think even something like, all right, there's 250. We've talked to however many, and I don't know. I mean, some of this is easier to track than others,
Right.
I guess. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the new stuff coming in. I mean, to Glenn's point, the stuff that takes years, that just requires a lot of those variables to fit very nicely. Those are. I mean, you could do what you can do. There are just a lot of challenges that any one person, let alone a group of people, let alone one person, can overcome. But I certainly think some, like the annexation. I mean, even this simple stuff like the posting, social media posting, obviously that's provable. The 70% by the end of 25, that's a tangible goal. But proof of thought.
Just the checks and balances system.
Mhm.
That's basically what we need. Make sure that the productivity is where we need it.
Good input. And speaking about trade shows, what is the next one coming up for a big one
Next week.
next week?
Yeah, I think it's Thursday, Friday next week in Austin.
That's that Retail Live Austin.
Yes, sir.
We going?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Check it off. Check. It's a great thing. I like it. That was a softball for you, Glenn. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the strategic work plan? All right, so this is an action item, and this was action on approval for adoption. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, so now we'll move on to discussion of an action on approving a co-working membership agreement for Helotes Economic Development Center and granting the executive director authority to amend the document as needed. So do I have a motion for discussion and action? Anyone wants to take motion on it?
A motion that we discuss action item number 9.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second. So we have a motion for discussion and action. We'll see what that action is going to be after we have this discussion here. So, Glenn, I think you've provided this membership agreement. So why don't you kind of give us a framework of where the agreement came from, what it's for, where it came from, and how it's here today.
Absolutely. So this was developed specifically for the co-working space to address either daily, weekly, monthly utilization. Went around and collected 5 of the agreements from some of the other entities in San Antonio and Bexar County to see what some of the issues they've had and what their contracts. That's one reason why this one's a little bit lengthy, I think. Try to go through and address anything you can come up with, including I know there was a clause and some discussion on smoking and vaping and all that kind of stuff. So this has been sent to the city attorney. The only comment the city attorney had really was the renter's insurance component, where in the existing agreement, we recommend and encourage tenants to have it. He said he would like to see it where we mandate it, but we are, thinking we're in a competitive environment. No other center mandates it. So you know, what we can include in the agreement is where it's the stuff in their office is left at with their liability, right? I mean, we're providing, you know, locks and security and all, and we've got cameras. We're doing everything we can physically, but you know, it's their personal property. So no, one thing to be clear is the reason it's called a membership agreement. This is not a lease. It's not a sublease. This is not rent. All that are legal definitions that give tenants more rights in the state of Texas. So anyway, kind of pointing that out to be clear. So it is a pretty lengthy document. To me, the most important is the last page. Talking about rates and all that kind of stuff.
Glenn, just on the insurance side,
Yes.
but we are carrying, like, let's say in inner space that we are in right now, do we carry insurance as lessees?
So I honestly, we've always been covered under the city's policy, but I don't know what the limits are of that policy. So that's something we need to look at.
Yeah. The only thing, this may be, you know, a different discussion, a different time, but as we start to get people in there and there's more value, I'll say, than we normally had inside of our space, we may look at trying to get as an EDC, maybe a separate type of umbrella policy or something that I think would make everybody feel more comfortable, because the only thing I see really bad coming out of it is just that, like, let's say that we had a water leak and it destroyed somebody's fancy computers, or, you know, are we then liable for their stuff being inside of our area?
Right.
You know, that damage has happened. So I definitely want to, I agree with you. I think it'd be very cumbersome for, let's say, somebody that has a weekly membership to try to get insurance on their space. But I don't mind us getting some more insurance to protect ourselves. And even if we're making slightly adjustments in the schedules as we go along.
To that point, I agree with you that the insurance would be cumbersome for somebody who's doing with, I mean, they're gonna look at a minimum premium of $500 a year to get a policy. But I'm curious, and I should have asked this probably before, just out of curiosity, but the lease that we have currently with the landlord, that does dictate that we are responsible for not only our business personal property within the structure, which is, you know, anything that would fall out, right? Desks, printers, those type of things, but also our improvements that we've done to the structure. We are responsible for those. In the case of the water leak, that we have to replace walls, floors, etc. So we need to check that policy
ACs, all that, yeah.
covers that as well. Not only you had mentioned umbrella, so I'm assuming liability coverage, any additional liability that we have from operating the business above what a typical EDC would be doing. That's the other thing that needs to be checked, if that coverage would extend over that. But the increasing our property limit is going to be crucial.
We'll get those answered.
And since I'm talking, I'll go ahead and say too, that this document as well was sent back and forth. I know Jeff was on those emails. I think Greg, you were on those emails at least 2 or 3 times. We've had discussions, gone over, make changes and recommendations to this document that are documented in those emails, right? After the city attorney looked at it. And I'm not sure what the timeline was. He looked at it before or after, but.
I thought that after we made the last change, there was a discussion about the insurance.
Then he had,
Whenever it went to him.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, it's taken but almost 2 months to get to this final document.
Back and forth and everything.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Glenn, my question is on the fee schedule, I guess, which
Yes,
is
sir.
the last page there. What is the difference of, like, let's say office 48 square foot? What's the difference between 500 and then 450?
So month to month versus doing a 12-month contract.
Okay. Okay.
give a
Did-
discount if they're gonna commit to a year. Now there are termination clause in there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly if it was 30 or 60 days notice.
Last page.
Minutes.
Favor assignment. Again, it's 13 pages.
So that's probably, I would just maybe have just an
30 days.
explanation.
Yeah.
Glenn, somewhere on that, since this is gonna be part of their contract, just some explanation
Yeah.
on how that works.
Absolutely.
That's an easy, you probably have it already done.
Yeah, I'll just reformat.
Okay, and these are the fees that we put into the
Projections.
projections
Yes.
pro forma. Okay. Good.
And there's a couple extra things in here, like the lounge access and stuff that we don't necessarily didn't count on in the pro forma. We really were just looking at the private office space and the meeting rooms, I think, on those projections.
All right.
I didn't ask this before, but what is the city pass?
So, a little nuance difference. So lounge access is specifically for the common area. The city pass would be one to where they could be in any open space. What if it's a co-working desk, or if there happens to be an office open, they could utilize it as long as it's not reserved.
Mhm. So in the marketing pieces, because I don't think I've seen any marketing
There
pieces
has not.
for this yet.
No.
So these will all be defined
Correct.
in that marketing piece, not necessarily in the contract, but they would go one and the same.
Okay. Do you think? I didn't remember. I do have a section up on the first page for City Pass, a monthly plan that entitles the member to access any available hot desk during normal business hours, plus other membership perks.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Okay.
So as part of your scope that we're talking about here to be able to negotiate would be like, let's say somebody comes and wants one of these offices, but they want color printing, like you would be able to go and customize and then give them
Correct.
market rates. Yeah.
So I'm not a contract expert. So I'm glad all of y'all looked at this. There's a lot of legalese in here that's beyond me. I think the important thing, especially in this action that we're taking tonight, is it does have the ability to give Glenn the ability to amend as necessary. Because I do think as time goes on, we're gonna find unique situations, right, that we never thought of. And it's gonna have to be amended. It's always gonna happen. Yes, it's gonna be like, oh, wow, we didn't think that about that thing. We have something about pets, I'm sure, animals.
there is a pet policy. There's also, so no pets allowed.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not even service.
Unless we get
That-
unless we get an EDC
They'll also-
lab or something.
You have to allow.
Yeah, there's policies for internet, for surveillance, since we do have security cameras. I mean, they are having to sign a waiver.
Right, because they're gonna be under surveillance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of this is coming from competitors.
Contracts or
Yeah.
membership agreements, sorry. All right.
Go ahead. I was gonna ask about the permission, or the authority, I'm sorry, in this to amend the contract. I don't think it needs to come before the board, but if he's gonna be amending this contract moving forward, shouldn't someone else besides just the executive director approve that, whether that be chairperson or the city attorney or something like that? Shouldn't there be one other party involved in that before the actual contract that we're having everyone sign be amended?
It'd be a good idea. Yes,
I
I'm trying to
mean-
think of the right person to do that or right.
I would say on some of this, probably not the city attorney, unless it's changing legal language.
Right.
If you're changing
Right.
terms, that's.
Yeah.
Well, then let's define that. I would agree. I would agree that the terms of the lease necessary, meaning either the rent rate or, what some of these individual things dictate or what comes with the services, right? I think,
Yeah.
that would be fine to amend. I was more along the lines thinking the legal
Right.
side of things that someone else needs to be besides just you for your own protection and for the protection of the contract, that someone else needs to.
I think what I would like, and it can be often done through just email, because Glenn, I know already there, you're gonna have somebody that's gonna come in and say, hey, I know your 1 year commitment is $450 monthly, but I'll do 2 years if you knock it down to $425, So somebody's gonna say that. There's always gonna be negotiating. It's gonna happen. I think if you have the ability, and I think to me, it's finance committee, just because I think it's a dollar deal. I think if you could just shoot a quick email and just say, hey, I've got somebody, kind of like what you do with the tenant improvement grants. Hey, I've got somebody who wants this. What are your all's thoughts? And that way you just get a quick sign off on it. And it's, again, it goes back to check and balances, just, make sure, you don't give anybody a super sweetheart deal over there, and that, somebody, it's always good to have somebody saying, yeah, this is a good thing, or, hey, let's push back on it a little bit. So I agree with you, Joel, and I'd like to just put it to the finance committee, and that way you have even more than one person. And that way too, if one person's out, you're not stopped in your negotiation. You have the ability to lean on 2 other people.
It's a good idea. And then any legal changes would go
To the attorney. Yeah.
either attorney or,
It would have to every time.
You would think so? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just to be a safeguard, I would
Yeah.
think.
So just to clarify, you're saying like any deviation from this back page or all contracts would need to run through the finance committee just for like basic?
Well, I would think any deviation, yes, I think any deviation that we have.
Somebody wants to
Just the
change
basic
deal.
boilerplate, like the membership benefits specifically stated, plus those pricing, any deviation from that would require just sending it off for kind of,
You're right.
just, clarify.
But that would not need to become an agenda item, right?
No, it'd just be finance committee.
Discussion and an
Yeah.
email.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you go buy a car, right? Hey, I need to go talk to my finance manager.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Sit tight.
Write a number down. You
Yeah.
feel comfortable with.
What kind of payment can you afford?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't sweat it a little bit. That finance manager, that guy. Okay. So any other further discussion? All right. So what I hear, or what I'm feeling is, where did our original motion come from?
I did,
Okay.
I
So,
move to accept the co-working membership agreement as written.
I'll second.
well, we have to, if we're gonna have to, since we had the kind of the discussion on it, Greg, we have to have you amend your motion
I'm sorry.
to say, to accept it as written is fine, with the ability of the director to amend the terms of the agreement with approval of the finance committee and what we say, that
And
legal
amendments go to the.
legal amendments through the city attorney.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
I move that we approve the co-working membership agreement on the contingency that any changes in this agreement performed by the director are to be approved by the attorney as well as the finance committee.
Did I get it done for you, Glenn? Is that close enough? I'd be a little bit
Add legal,
specific.
add legal for the attorney.
Legal for the attorney.
Do we have an attorney present? What do you want to add to it?
Well, no, any amendments to the terms can be done by the finance committee, and any amendments to legalese need to be run through the city attorney. So just say so moved. And,
So moved.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Is a second still good with the amended.
Yeah.
I still like
Okay.
it my way better.
Yeah, it's so much simpler.
Run everything through everybody, it's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. So we have our first exciting,
It's good.
yeah. our
Now
agreement
the
in
web
place.
developer can incorporate some of this stuff.
All right, so we'll now move on to item number 10. Discussion of an action on amending an economic development agreement between the HEDC and the city of Helotes supporting city events and marketing efforts. All right, so do I have a motion for action and discussion and action on amendment?
So moved.
All right, a motion.
Second.
All right, a motion is second. Good. So it's now open for discussion. So I know this came directly out of a committee meeting, correct?
Yes, I did.
All right. So who wants to give the
Spiel.
spiel?
Would you like to, Jeff, or?
So we looked at the agreement and the city was supposed to spend X number of dollars on marketing. And year to date, they had spent, I want to say it was about 20%.
Yeah,
About 20% of what it was. So we discussed it and recommended that we pull 15,000 out of the agreement so that we could do the marketing ourselves.
Okay,
That way we can hire professionals and get it done and not have to rely on the city to do the actual marketing.
I guess my question, Glenn, is if the city had it in their budget and it doesn't get spent, what happens with that money?
so the way these contracts have typically worked, they don't specifically allocate it to any individual fund. They just put it into the general fund.
Okay. But if it doesn't get spent, what happens? It's it's
The
in the
agreement
general
was that
fund.
we give the city 50,000 and part of that 25% is supposed to be spent on advertising. When we got the report back on what has been spent year to date, yeah, it was like,
I think they were supposed to spend 12.5, weren't they, I think?
yes, and it was less than 2,500 that was actually spent.
That had been spent.
Out of that.
Yep.
There's a line item somewhere that's tracking that, right? I guess.
Probably not.
Okay. Okay,
Because we requested a report on how much they had actually done on the marketing, and that's what we were given.
okay.
So that's why we want to pull it so that the committee talked about it and we decided that we should pull it and do the marketing ourselves.
Okay. And that would be, when we talk about marketing, and this was just in general for specific events, or is this for,
All city events.
Anything and everything for the
Anything and
city.
everything that we're touching.
I mean, we discussed, we could do radio, TV, we could do, print, all kinds of social media, all kinds of
It
marketing.
just opens us up to do more.
yeah. In fact, I was thinking radio the other day. I was listening to one radio station at I think it was City of Bernie had a nice radio ad on there about their market days. I was like, we could do that. Okay. I understand it. I understand why.
We can better direct it.
Yeah.
If it brings more folks in, that's what's important.
Right. But that kind of also goes with our strategic plan, which is what I.
It does, exactly.
Alliance.
It aligns.
And in previous years, was it closer to 100% of that spend?
I don't even think we have it record at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
We've never been provided a report. This year was the first
It's
time.
never been tracked. It's just been an informal agreement.
We gave it to them and assumed that they did. And so this year, we requested a report on what they had actually done for marketing because we were talking about it and says, what have they done for marketing?
Did they say anything else? I'm just trying to imagine what, like, if just trying to imagine what the other side might see it as, like, oh, we did joint marketing. It wasn't specific to EDC or HEDC initiative, or it was in a different line. I don't know. I'm just trying to imagine,
Yeah, the agreement
somehow
was that
convoluted.
we sponsored, was it 10 market days? 4th of July parade, the Christmas or 4th of July fireworks, the Carnival parade, and the Christmas parade is what we sponsor in addition to, and then we were supposed to be co-sponsors with all those items. And then I think it was 12.5 that they were supposed to spend on marketing.
Total, it was
50 for everything.
Okay.
And
So
so
the 35,000 still staying in there for the co-sponsors.
The co-sponsor
Just
of
the
everything
marketing
else.
component that we say.
Yes,
let's-
we pulled 15 out for marketing.
Yeah.
And everything else goes to that.
Yeah.
So they're still gonna get 35. We actually pulled 2,500 more than what we were
Which
allocating for marketing originally.
makes more sense. That way we actually have some direction
Yeah,
on where we're putting this money.
And since we just talked about our strategic plan about how we needed to promote and do marketing.
Yeah.
That's why we said, well, why don't we do it ourselves?
Yeah.
Not necessarily ourselves, but we can hire somebody to do it.
Right.
Yeah. That was our thought on it. That makes sense, Austin?
It does. Yeah. I love a good marketing campaign, costumes and all.
yes.
I mean, it does.
I think
that's-
we've been taxed with doing a much better job of the checks and balances and really following up on some of these things that maybe we assumed had been done previously, whether it be this or other projects or initiatives. So I appreciate y'all checking on it and following up on it and getting the information so that we could make a decision or just know where we stand. So appreciate y'all doing that.
And it doesn't bother me, if at one point the city comes back and says, yeah, we've got now a focused marketing campaign and here's what it is, and we'd really like to have y'all's money back in. We can easily just say, yeah, here's a donation out of our that 15,000, whatever it is. So,
If we hadn't already
We're not
done
taking
something.
everything
Right.
away.
right.
Yeah.
But it's not like it can't still go there.
Right.
It's just another step. All right, it's fine. Okay. Any other discussion? All right, so we have the motion. Oh,
Can I ask one other
Sure.
thing? So that, would we move on the budget that we have now, would we move that 15 from there and it would add to our current marketing line item that we have in the budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that would go to almost 100,000 then. We'd be at 99,000, right? Weren't we at 84?
I think so.
80, we'd be at, okay,
I'll make sure.
that's fine. I'll just,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just discussed the budget. We didn't approve it, so we could still make edits to it.
Right.
Okay. So we have action on amendment of the economic development agreement between the HEDC and City of Helotes for support of city events and marketing efforts. We discussed those amendments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion passes. All right, so we're on to the last of our items here on individual consideration. Here's a fun one. Discussion of an action on submitting letters of recommendation to city council for the reappointment of Blaine Lopez, Gregory Hayden, and Austin Lane to the Helotes Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors as required by the bylaws. You just up again.
Of all time.
Yeah, bad timing there. All right, so do I have a motion for discussion and action on submitting of those letters of recommendation?
So moved.
second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any discussion?
Would y'all like to have us back?
I like that. We didn't say what was gonna put in a letter of recommendation. It's all good. And Austin, you're just bad timing that you're literally just got on and now you have to.
City council's gonna be psyched. Guys, me again.
Again?
Get another
They're
swing.
like, didn't we just see this
Get rid of
guy?
this guy.
Yeah, we just saw him.
3 times in 6 months, man.
Yeah.
This is-
And Glenn, we're up every 2 years?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, God, time's flying. Okay, seems like we're just here. All right, any other discussion?
Oh, I want to come back.
Can we have a quorum on this?
Y'all can,
Uh,
right?
Well,
How does that
I don't
work?
vote anyway.
3 of us are on it.
Right, but he doesn't vote unless for a tie.
But
Yeah,
Oh, you got 3.
doesn't matter.
but you can still vote for yourself. I mean, you're voting for letter of recommendations for everybody, so I don't think I
I'll
don't
vote for
think you
you,
have to
Greg.
abstain from that.
All right, I'll vote for Blaine.
There we go. Carousel.
Got this.
Yeah. I don't think we could do it all in one motion, right, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, so that is the end of our individual consideration items. We'll move on to our staff report. So Glenn, update us on the following: the Helotes Visitor and Business Center.
So I would encourage anyone that hasn't been out to maybe schedule or go out on your free will. Most of the time it's open during the day. If you want to schedule an appointment, love to kind of show you around. I know Joel, Blaine, Melissa, and Jeff have all been out. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think about that before I started talking. Good to see you, Greg. Come on.
Hey,
Uh,
I drive by and just look through the window.
That's it. So
Yeah.
Well, he was there before the walls were up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made a lot of progress. So all the walls are up, sheetrock's up, they're tape and floating right now. They're doing all the finalizing the return and supplies for the ductwork, ACs in.
Data lines.
Data electrical.
foam spray.
The foam spray is next. That's scheduled Tuesday next week to do the common areas, to do that spray. And then they'll do the spray and insulation into the hard decks. And then we're going to be looking at priming, flooring,
Oh.
right now. Yeah, he's hoping, honestly, the contractor's hoping to be substantial completion by September 16th. He said it could get pushed a week or so. I know we've got doors. All the doors are supposed to be in next week. There has been a delay on the front door for access control. We're hoping that'll be in next week too. So all the interior doors and exterior could be installed by Friday next week. So we're gonna see a lot more progress.
Yeah. I think at worst, we're talking about trying to get it all paid out, this fiscal year, but if they're finishing substantial completion on the 16th, really by the time you go through punch and release of retainage and all that, it's probably going to go into October.
More than likely that last
Yeah.
payment too.
I mean, at least I would plan on whatever their retainage is, at least going into October, because I think between all of us, we're all probably gonna go in there and have our own little nitpicking on it, our blue tapes and it's kind of all of our invested in it time-wise, so I think we're all gonna punch it out pretty hard. So we'd planning there being some money coming over. Are they able to move that pipe up?
They're doing that Friday.
Oh, nice. Very good. That's kind of good.
Yeah.
Much better look.
I know I still gotta pick out, anyway, a couple of fixtures, but no, it's project is moving forward pretty quick.
I have two questions on signage.
Oh.
First one was we had talked about doing some type of banner or something out front, letting the public know why there was boarded up windows and a dumpster out there for the last 50 or 90 days, whatever it's been now. Lost track of time. Did we need approval for that? I haven't heard anything about that and I kind of
Not,
forgot.
board approval. I haven't designed it.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, yeah, one of those things that fell to my plate that to me was not urgent. We've got a lot of, the primary sign design, having to work on that and presentation to P and Z and city council.
Yeah. So that was my next question. It's come to, I guess, was brought to my attention that the verbiage used in the sign was not necessarily what was some folks thought was reflective from what was in the building or should be in the space. What avenues do we have to maybe revisit that? Are we past that point?
I don't think we're past the point. We can take direction. We
Mhm.
can't take a vote on it on this particular, the report item, but we can take.
Oh, right, no,
direction
yeah.
right now, to staff, and then I'm presenting to council tomorrow. So if there is a desire to make a modification, then verbiage isn't something that has to go back to P and Z, as long as the parameters of the sign are not changing, the design's not changing.
Mhm.
Okay.
And it actually looks like it's gonna probably wind up being less square footage than what we
Correct.
ran through P and Z.
Mhm.
Right.
The concern was that there wasn't in what we're looking at currently putting into the sign was that visitors center wasn't included in there at all. That looked like it was just nor business center, really, the development center is what it was saying. So,
Right.
and well, the more I thought about it, I said, okay, that point is well made, that maybe we should include something that's a little more descriptive. Glenn had the point that we could also use some type of, or potentially could have some type of signage or lettering in the window or something like that as well. Because if we get too much letters in that sign, you won't be able to read the sign from the road anyway, so it's kind of a moot point there. So I just wanted to kind of bring it up to say, hey, let's maybe discuss it a little bit more. Just, I think it was a good point made.
I think I agree with you. I think it's a good point made. Glenn, the question that comes to you is like, what gets approved by city council tomorrow? Is it the actual sign or is it the variance? Like, is it
It is
a sign like what city council approves tomorrow? We cannot vary from that or on the verbiage side of it?
My understanding is we can, as long as we don't exceed the size that they're approving. Let me see let's see what he's checking it there.
I was gonna see if I can pull it up. Can't remember what item it is.
P and Z approved the shape of the piece above the arch.
Okay,
And they approved the sign with the size that we presented,
right.
which was approximately 6 by 12, roughly.
Yes, yeah, 6 by 10.
6 by
That's what
10
we Put in there.
is what it is. And Glenn and I have been working on the sign, and it's now down to like 59 inches by, so we're 5 foot by approximately 8.5, I think is what it was. It's actually a little bit smaller. We were able to condense it a little
I
bit.
think that was Mr. Buck's comment. Could we squeeze it down just a little bit?
Just a little bit.
We may have to because of the equipment.
Yeah, the sign, the actual metal part's being donated, the labor is.
So again, it comes down to
What a
like
nice
what it
sign.
gets approved because it's a timing issue, right? We're not making the sign yet. I mean, we still can look at.
Yeah, if there's a desire to change the verbiage, I would like to present that to council tomorrow. And that way it gets approved as intended. So what initially was presented is the Helotes Economic Development Center. What has been requested is that we reconsider the original name that was, I think, discussed as the Helotes Visitor and Business Center.
Can we just add business after economic?
No, the visitor is the word that they want in there.
Visitor specific.
I don't think we need, it was mentioned to put EDC in that as well.
No,
No one's gonna know what
No.
EDC means, so I don't see the point in putting EDC in
So
there.
you
I
can
think-
make the letters EDC a different color.
No.
yeah,
It could be Helotes business and then just have, you wouldn't actually write out and I wouldn't
put
think.
an ampersand or something.
Yeah, and then,
If you took, and if you,
visitor center, I mean, you're
Just
just
be-
replacing economic and development with the two different words.
if you did business center, if you did that and took out economic completely,
Right,
you would actually be able to make it, it would scale a little different. The problem is right now, so the equipment that's gonna make it can't do anything bigger than 60 inches in height.
okay,
So that's why it's at 59.5 inches roughly. And that scales it down to keep it proportional. That
right,
scales it to like 8.5 feet.
okay, we keep
Is-
that.
And that's even
Ratio.
including condensing it, because Glenn and I looked at it, we've actually condensed it height wise. We looked at it a couple of ways of lowering the windmill down a little bit. And then we looked at taking out as much space between the wording height wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So if it was 5 inches, we looked at going to like 3.5 or something to that effect.
it just, the hard part I have in it, Glenn, is like to really understand what's gonna look good. Like we almost have to have like a little rendering made again, right, of how.
We have some of those already made up though. So it seems like we had something.
That was for the sign in Old Town.
Yeah, for the one in Old Town.
Yeah, I mean, this is very similar to the sign in Old Town because it is our logo. It's what we
Right.
use. So if we do change the verbiage, I think the cleanest would be replacing economic with visitor or visitors, whatever. And then development center to be business center and business center using ampersand or something.
Did we put business first?
Good, put business where economic is.
Visitor center.
It's just weird for me to put visitor center first and we're selling it as a business center.
Yeah.
It's, that.
I just like the business center together for me. So yeah. no.
Yeah.
Well, since you've reduced the height of it, what's the height difference from what we were approved at?
We were approved at 6 foot.
Mhm.
Oh, so you only have half an inch to work with.
We were approved at 6 foot and we went to 5.
Five.
5 foot's the biggest we could do.
But if you had one separate other line visitor center, could you cut that separately? Just tack it?
There you go.
I'm not sure I can see that.
Nice to work, so-
It's not a very good.
The problem is you can't.
Yeah. There's probably a way to do it. Yeah, I'm just worried. So here's my thoughts on it is, I don't know what we can get done to say, yeah, we're gonna do it for sure by tomorrow. That's what I'm worried about. Then it's really gonna come, but city council could come and say, hey, we're gonna approve this, but with the requirement that you put the word visitors in it. And then it still gives us at least some time to come up with the,
They could also deny it and then we.
and then they deny, then we have to go back to the next one with the new design. It's still, I mean, we're not, when is this sign going on there?
Well, we can't release it until we have approval.
How long does
So,
it take to make
I mean,
it?
Well, we haven't finalized the design yet. Once we get the design, it's a matter of
Sorry.
putting it on the machine and hitting print,
Okay.
and it cuts it out. I mean, it's probably gonna be about
8 days.
actual work time is, 20 minutes to load it on the machine and
Right.
an hour to sit there and watch it cut.
Yeah, but then there's fabrication. of
Then
the
there's
cars.
cleanup and there's fabrication and the backlighting of it and.
I mean,
We're already talking 6 to 8 weeks before this would be up. So any delay then just kicks us out to the end of the year. That was my concern.
So what, just for I'm probably lost, so I'll ask the question. So we're talking about Helotes, right? Helotes? We all like the windmill.
Helotes.
We all agree. That's good. Good start.
Keep that
Solid
there.
base.
Helotes.
So economic would be substituted with business or visitor,
Business or visitor.
and then little and sign, third line.
Yeah, maybe it'd be business or visitor. I think, yeah, I don't know if it goes third line or on the second line. Again, I don't know what looks better.
How big are those letters right now? How big is economic? I mean,
It's like 4.5 inches, I think it was.
But if we're just subbing it out, like these are the same roughly amount of characters, right?
But the problem you run into is your overall height.
But if you're not changing like the font, right? And you're just
Right.
removing economic and putting a business or a visitor, and the same thing with development and business or visitor.
What
Right?
if you just did business / visitor?
Throw a hashtag in
Visitor
there.
and business center. They didn't like the E EDC.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling maybe I'm slow on the uptake here. I like the idea of business and visitor center. Like I like the idea of having visitor in there for what it's worth. I'm not deeply passionate about it though. So you guys show me the hill that we're gonna, but it does make sense to have visitor in there. I think that would be, I just think like when I'm trying to imagine as a business owner, like where's your office? I go, it's in the visitor center. I don't know, just in my brain, it seems like it's gonna be something easier for like, oh, where's the visitor center? That might resonate more with people than the economic development center, but that's
Right.
very derived.
The
Anyway.
intention, so we'll go back to the very intentions of us, doing this build and, we always had the thoughts that we were gonna do a freestanding building one day that would be our EDC office plus the visitor center all together.
Mhm.
Since that time, we haven't been able to find the land to build a building on, and so we kind of come to, this is what we got and this is where we're gonna do it. The visitor center, and then this is where we also came to the realization that, hey, we need to have this thing actually serve the business community and have some income producing qualities to it. And so that's when we added in the ability to have the co-working space. The visitor side of it has kind of been I don't know, it's kind of almost been a sidebar in all this. It's, but at the same time, I don't want there to be any illusion or idea that we misled anybody by putting the word visitor in there when we had these discussions and then yanking it out at the end saying, thanks for the extra money. So I don't want to have that as well. I'd love to have some visitor information there. If we have visitors stop in just to get information on Helotes, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's a good thing for Helotes. So I don't mind having Joe Public, because the Joe Public coming in may be the ones that say, oh man, I've been looking for a space, co-working space like this, and we might get a customer out of it, you know, so. So I don't mind it. I don't know how we're visually gonna get something ready to send to city council tomorrow.
Fair enough. Visit. What if we took economic out and put business where economic is? And then take out development and put and visitor center.
I like that a lot. If you're asking, I don't think we're
Yeah.
voting, but I like
I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
Joel, what's your thoughts on that?
I would be open to that, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to have the discussion more than anything. I'm like Austin, I'm not super passionate about it, but I do like the idea of business being in there more than the development side. So, but it is going to be a business center. I mean, that is the majority of it. The visitor part of it is a very small percentage of the actual center itself at this time. But originally we had discussed it as being it is a component, still planned to be a component. But it's not nearly the component that the business center is of it. So more or less wanted to have the conversation more than anything and to see how available a change was if we wanted to make one.
Are you able to get that proof by tomorrow?
Yes,
Done tomorrow? Change those wording?
yes.
You just have both? Can you go into the meeting with both?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, I'll have it as a, just in case.
What's it like 12 or
On a
13?
4-inch letter for,
I don't remember offhand. So what we did, he did he took the artwork and then we imported it into the software, the sign software. Because then you have to go in there and you have to connect.
could I read that from Valero?
From Valero, possibly,
Yeah.
because it's gonna be a dark color with a light background like that. And that's the other thing too. We don't know if it's gonna be backlit yet, or
Yeah.
that's more than likely it's gonna be like plastic behind it, so that it's black with the plastic showing,
Contrast.
contrast through it.
Yeah.
Now, it's gonna look a little bit different than that, because like the O's will be connected. It'll look like a
Yeah.
stencil part. It'll be a line,
Little lines, yeah.
it'll be a little line top to bottom on the O.
that's fine.
So everything that you see in black will all be one piece connected.
Yeah, I guess you couldn't have the O as a cutout because it kind of fall through. The donut hole would fall through.
I was seeing opposite there, but that's cool. I was like, you got it.
Yeah, it's gonna be the black will be the main thing, and then the white will be behind it. And then it'll probably be LEDs that'll be behind that.
Yeah.
That
It'll
show
be kind of translucent.
exactly.
Okay.
Opaque
gonna
and
be-
translucent, so it comes through.
Yeah, I think having that white behind there is gonna be great.
Uh,
So Glenn, I know,
That's enough
know,
direction on that.
yeah, I think that's direction, and I would say, just so we don't have quorum on it whenever, if you would just send it to the building committee tomorrow.
Absolutely. Traffic circle update. We've been,
Yay.
reaching out to, I forgot the guy's name again. Robert is contracted with a engineer to go out there and draft a letter. He's familiar with the traffic circle. Saw no issues with any potential violations of turning radiuses or anything like that with what's installed. So we should be getting that here in the next week or so, and then we'll send that over to the city, and we shouldn't have any further issues on that. Once that's resolved, then we can actually install the pedestal for the sculpture, and then kind of figure out an installation date. But that's what's kind of holding up that pedestal. And then, the art grant, those of you that were able to attend, we did a joint mixer with the Helotes Chamber. We had like 50 people come out to that. So that was
That's cool.
really encouraging. People from city council, a lot of residents. We even had half of the council from Bandera came out, which is kind of interesting. And they actually want to join us in videoing the installation. And they evidently have pretty deep connection to the artist. She's done some pieces there in the downtown area. That's about it.
All right. with that, with no other further updates, then we are at the end of our agenda and we are adjourned. It is 8:42. Thanks for bringing us.
Hold on,
Would you,
hold on.
Cause there's no infrastructure.
What's this?